On tonight's episode of the show, Espo and I talk baseball stadiums as we'll be listing our top 5 favorite baseball stadiums that we have visited throughout our lifetime. All the great live on Leading Off. At now in New York, airing exclusively on Twitch and powered by StreamYard. And welcome back to the show on this Monday, May the 10th, 2021. I'm your host, Rich Rivera, and pending some Wi-Fi issues here, the guy on the right side of our screen is Espo, and we're back for another show, Alex. Who's Alex?
Well, it is me, Espo, but Rich, sorry about those Wi-Fi issues. I think we've made it past them, but as always, a pleasure to be leading off with you on this wonderful Monday evening.
Yes, absolutely. I'm checking the Wi-Fi on my end, making sure I'm good as well. But hopefully our broadcast from the beginning wasn't so interrupted because, we have new followers here on the program that we have to impress here. A big piece happened over the last couple of days, or yesterday rather. I mean, Reggie Jackson is now leading off our own show that had 50 followers going into Sunday. And Reggie Jackson, a National Baseball Hall of Famer, made his career with the Oakland A's and the Yankees and the California Angels, the Baltimore Orioles, a Hall of Famer. National Baseball Hall of Famer, 14th all-time in home runs, is leading off now on Twitter at LF Podcast. This is amazing.
That's absolutely huge for the brand, Rich. I mean, Mr. October, a legend of baseball in so many regards, is now following our podcast. If you weren't following the podcast before, you have no reason to not hit that follow button. I mean, if Reggie's doing it, you should do it.
It's so wild because this coming week I'm going to a bachelor party up in northern New York, and we're going to be checking out Cooperstown, the National Baseball Hall of Fame, as part of this weekend itinerary. So it's crazy that just days before that, Mr. October's leading off. I'm going to the Hall of Fame, so I have a lot to report on.
You're going to name drop Reggie when you're at the Hall of Fame? Oh, he's a personal friend. Can you let me in for free?
Personal friend. Yes.
Yeah.
And you bet I'm going to be tweeting out a picture of me standing next to Reggie Jackson's plaque in Cooperstown. I mean, that will be the cherry on top. And that was such a cool thing to see yesterday because I was just on the road, and I see Twitter is always popping up and a bunch of things happening on my Twitter notifications. And I see a Mr. October's following you on Twitter.
Oh, this is just some random guy on Twitter with the name Mr. October,
I didn't think anything of it. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought, all right, random dude, probably just adopting the Reggie, the Reggie nickname. Really cool. All right. I don't know how he got that handle, but that's sick. Not even thinking that Reggie even had a Twitter to begin with. And sure enough, it was the real Reggie Jackson. So Reggie, if you're listening in on Twitch, if you're watching us, we appreciate your follow. Thank you for joining the Leading Off family. This is huge for us, and it's fun. So, yes, you should be doing the same as well if you haven't already. Follow us at LOff Podcast on Twitter, where we're talking all baseball. Or you can also follow Espo at
The Life of Espo.
And you can follow me at Rich J. Rivera. All right. Off to an electric start already. So, we're going to go and get things kicked off with Ducks on the Pond, as we always do, because, there's always news to cover in the MLB world. Our bases are loaded with news and notes. So we always started off with injuries. Unfortunately, and for the New York Metropolitans, who's being represented on the top of the head of Espo's brim there. Yeah, Jacob deGrom placed on the 10-day IL with right side tightness. An unfortunate setback for deGrom, but there's some positivity here. They're saying that he's probably just going to be missing just the minimum. This is more of a reassurance thing. So it looks like maybe 1 or 2 starts at the very max, but hopefully it's nothing more to worry about for Jacob deGrom.
Right. And to me, this screams, precautionary measure. I guess as a Mets fan, I've always you always try and assume the worst, but yeah, I mean, it's only going to be 1-2 starts max. You'll see me knocking on wood here, but with 3 off days in the next 11 days, I mean, it makes sense to put him on the IL. There's no reason to, have him make his next start. It's still early in the season. We're still in the middle of May, so I see this as just the Mets being overly cautious. So hopefully, it's nothing more than that.
And according to Mark Polishuk from MLB Trade Rumors, saying the news was a surprise considering that DeGrom made an early exit from yesterday's start, though an MRI didn't reveal any structural damage, which is always a good thing. So, yeah, I think it's more of a reassurance thing. And ever since MLB adopted the 10-day IL as opposed to their former 15-day disabled list, baseball teams are more, apt to put a guy on the IL now because it's a short amount of time. They don't really have to worry so much. And they can just say, hey, listen, this is a precautionary, even if you're going to be good in a couple of days, let's just put you on the 10-day IL. We'll clear the roster and give somebody a chance up here. So again, hopefully DeGrom's good to go after the 10-day minimum. Now we'll stay in New York, though, as we do have somebody coming off the IL real soon for the crosstown New York Yankees. Luke Voit is set to rejoin the team. They're saying as soon as tomorrow. That's being Tuesday, May the 11th. And that's a big, big, big power upgrade for this team, which has been exceeding expectations. Well, I can't even say exceeding expectations, but have doing everything right over the last few weeks. The Yankees have one of the best records, if not the best record, since I believe mid-April at this rate. They killed it on their last homestand. So Luke Voit going to jump into the fray here, and we're happy to see him.
Yeah, he'll certainly be a welcome addition for that lineup. I mean, you did mention they have been playing great these last couple of weeks. They seem to have righted the ship, but to me, this is kind of a perfect example of the rich getting richer. I mean, they're not necessarily in first place right now, but this is a team that their strength is their offense, and it's only going to get stronger once Voit is back mashing for them.
Something about rich getting richer has always been a favorite phrase of mine. I don't know why.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that one. A couple other notes: Chris Sale has begun throwing off a mound, which is good news for Sale and Byron
fantasy
Buxton.
owners.
Yes, and Chris Sale fantasy owners who took a chance on him late in the rounds this year. Good for you guys. Byron Buxton back on the 10-day IL, hip strain for him, and every time it seems like this guy is showing signs of greatness, he's back on the injured list. So hopefully for fantasy owners like me, who always takes a chance on this fucking guy, Buxton is back in great shape sooner than later.
We have got to be the biggest tease ever, which made me think of a good idea for our next show, a new segment, the All Tease Team. Guys that have just oozed with potential, but just never seem to live up to it. But
I like that. You're definitely going to see a lot of guys who either were snagged with the injury bug or guys who just didn't pan out the way they were projected. And, it's amazing when there are those guys who do, what do you call? They live up to the expectations. Like a guy who I think of immediately was Steven Strasburg.
Right.
And it's unfortunate in the last couple of years, but outside the last couple of years of injuries, Strasburg was touted to be one of the best starting pitchers in all of baseball when he first came up and he was drafted by the Nats. And I believe he lived up to that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got the hardware, World Series MVP, so that says enough. But
yeah, so that's
something to keep in mind for next time. But
definitely. But let's keep it rolling here. We had another couple no-hitters thrown over the week, which is nuts. I mean,
I love it.
John Means of the Orioles, he threw, of course, 9 innings, striking out 12 Seattle Mariners, and then Wade Miley, who's trying to write his career bid in Cincinnati. Another 8K performance for him and his no-hitter against the Cleveland Indians. Of course, these are two teams, the Mariners and Indians are weak hitting teams, but it just seems like a hitting epidemic across baseball, regardless what team you're at. It's getting wild of how bad the offense has been this year. Like, do we have an explanation for this at this rate, Espo?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. But I like what you said about, everyone's throwing no-hitters now, but when Wade Miley is throwing a no-hitter, that's when we know that there is a problem with hitting, because this is not a guy you'd ever expect to throw a no-hitter, let alone make it out of the 5th or 6th inning. But hey, I mean, kudos to him. He pitched a great game, and it was against a shitty opponent in Cleveland, but nonetheless, he still did it. But I do think that there is definitely a problem so far. The stats will definitely back that up as well. Hitters just are not hitting, and the pitchers are dominating. And it seems like if it's not a home run, it's a strikeout, and those are the only outcomes. No in betweens.
It's nuts. And I mean, the only explanation I got, and because I know we're running out of time in this segment, but the only explanation I have is that the hitters are not in their normal rhythm still because of the shortened season last year, because they did have a normal spring training heading into 2020, and then that was even cut short. And then the players were just off for years. God bless you. They're off for years, and off for years. Jesus Christ, off for months, and they had to rush back into the rhythm of things in July. And now they're kind of getting back into the normal schedule, but they didn't have the regular reps that they had back in 2020.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to see the offense kind of click fully until probably middle of the season. And then I could say probably the 2022 season, you'll see more of a regular, offense, not as many complete game shutouts and no hitters, because it's wild. I mean, the fact that we have 4, not even including Bumgarner's 7-inning no hitter, is nuts at this rate at May 10th of 2021. It's nuts. Last news piece here, and a sad one. Albert Pujols, designated for assignment by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, one of my favorite players of all time. I have to open this up and pour one out for my man, Albert Pujols. I did that in a trash bin because I do not want to get any White Claw on the carpet. But Albert Pujols, at the ripe old age of 41, I think, I don't know, set to be released by the Angels unceremoniously by this team in the last year of his contract. Hall of Famer, the greatest first baseman to ever play the game of baseball. Not a hot take. It is a hot fact. Albert Pujols, what do you make of this whole situation with Pujols and the Angels, and where do you see Albert going next, if he's going anywhere?
I see Albert going to the golf course. I don't see any team picking him up. I mean, the teams I thought of, the White Sox with a need for hitting, but maybe a La Russa reunion, but they seem like they don't want to do that. And the Cardinals, they got Goldschmidt at first. It's a nice sentimental story, but where would you even put him? So, I mean, it sucks for Albert. He's had an amazing career. He's, in my opinion, the best player of this century. Sorry, Mike Trout, but you don't have any rings, buddy. So it sucks. It might just be an unceremonious end for the greatest player of our generation.
Sadly, it seems that way. I would love to see Pujols get like a weekend contract with the Cardinals as like a nice send-off. Obviously, there's no room for him.
Like Ichiro did with Seattle a few years back.
Like David Wright. And I can't believe we didn't even mention David Wright in that. But like, yeah, I would love to see that like one weekend send off. You get him a couple ABs, maybe like a half a game at first base. Again, the Cardinals don't need him. Right. It's just more of like, hey, listen,
early enough in the season where you can kind of throw that up. I mean, if it's September, you're in the pennant race, it's a different story. But it's still kind of early enough in the season where you can do something kind of bullshit like that, and just for sentimental value.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I like to see it. We have a few comments here in the chat. We love our Twitter and Twitch supporters, and we appreciate when you guys participate here. Expert FME, who's been a constant in our chat here. Love having Expert FME in our chat. Who's next? Ed Cranepool, Willie Mays. I guess it's in reference to who's going to follow us next on Twitter.
Right.
Hopefully, Willie Mays would be great. But we have I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. DES Dutch. I guess I did say it wrong.
Des Dutch.
White Claw. ESPO. Why aren't you busting him about that? I mean, ESPO does bust my balls about me drinking White Claws, but I also am like that typical Staten Islander that you just fucking hate at a bar that just orders them on the constant. So
pounding claws.
Yeah, just pounding claws. And
I will say one more note
guys.
One more note on Pujols before we move on, Rich.
Yes.
If the Wilpons were still owners of the Mets, Albert Pujols would be batting cleanup tonight at Citi Field.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd be in a prominent role in this team. Absolutely. Before we get into our favorite MLB stadiums, which I highlighted on Twitter earlier, make sure to also like and subscribe to us on YouTube, because I've been mentioning for the last couple of weeks, Leading Off is on YouTube now, so you can check out all our previous episodes from episode 1 through 8 since we started the show back in mid-March. lot of good stuff there. A lot of cool guests we've had on. A lot of fun segments we had on, like last week where we were talking the best facial hair in baseball history with my barber of all people, who also hosted a podcast called Full Count. Really cool stuff. So you got to check that out as well on YouTube. So make sure to give us a like and subscribe and push that notification button on the bottom of your screen. Leading off on YouTube, MLB stadiums. This was the big topic of today's show, ESPO. And specifically, we're going to talk about our personal favorite stadiums, the ones we actually been to. Because obviously, there's plenty that I would love to list on here, but I just never stepped inside. Now, you've been to a lot from what I heard.
This is true. So every summer, my father and I, we try and go to a new baseball stadium and kind of do a tour of that city as like a nice little father-son annual trip. But, obviously with COVID last year, we didn't get to do it. And this summer, we just, have other plans, kind of busy. So not sure if we'll get to do it this year either, but next year for sure. We're hoping to maybe go to St. Louis or Cincinnati, somewhere in the Midwest. So we'll see. But
Awesome.
yes, stadiums are just, I love going to stadiums, man. It's just nothing's better than going to a baseball game live.
Yeah. So we decided we're going to list our top 5 favorites that we've been to all time. And I'll start it off with my number 5. Again, these are personal. So these are stadiums I've been to. I've only been to 9, which is sad that I've only been to 9. But I'm also going to the National Baseball Hall of Fame for the first time in my life this Sunday. So obviously I'm late to life. Number 5. For me, it's Oracle Park, and probably should get rid of some of these graphics just because, it's kind of gross to see all this stuff. So, but Oracle Park in San Francisco. And it's funny because when I went to Oracle Park, it wasn't even for a freaking baseball game. I just went for a day tour because I was just in the area. But yeah, this park is gorgeous, to say the least.
The view, it's just perfect. It is perfection.
Absolutely. It's a great ballpark to be in. And I love some of the features like Triples Alley. The McCovey Cove is really cool. And that Coke bottle that's beyond left center field. What's cool about the Coke bottle?
It's a slide?
It's a slide.
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
That's so sick.
It's a slide that belongs at a fucking playground. It's so awesome. So
cool.
That's in my number 5. Espo, who do you have in your number 5 spot?
Number 5. I mean, man, this was so tough just because I've been to 20 stadiums, so I do have a lot of experience to choose from, but checking in at number 5 has got to be Kauffman Stadium out in Kansas City. My dad and I went a couple of years ago, 2017, 2018, I want to say, but this is just a really unique stadium. I mean, you have the backdrop of kind of the interstate highway is very unique to that stadium. You don't really see that much anywhere else. You have that giant Royal TV logo in the middle, which, despite my hatred for the Royals, I have to admit it's pretty cool. And then the fountains, man, that's probably the coolest aspect of it, is just there's fountains lining the outfield past the walls. So a lot of splash home run hits, which is really cool.
Now, I love the comments in the chat here. Again, like throw in your comments. What are your favorite MLB parks that you've been to? Maybe what's your worst MLB stadium you've ever been to, or what do you want to visit next? Like, give it all to me here in the chat here. I see Expert for me says you've been to over 20 ballparks as well, so that's really cool. Yeah. So starting it off, Oracle Park and Kauffman Stadium, respectively. Seals the Man saying Camden Yards, which we'll obviously get to in a little bit.
Starting Seals the Man.
Yeah, it Seals the Man. All right, number 4 for me is Citi Field. Citi Field, and for me, the Yankee fan too, this is the only New York ballpark that's on my top 5. I enjoy Citi Field. I love the bridge out in right center field. It's the Shea Bridge, I believe they call it.
Yep.
That's really cool. Of course, I'm that typical guy who's going to say, yep, I do love me some Shake Shack. And I love the fact that they have a Shake Shack.
Rich. You're going to waste half the game waiting in line for that.
I love it, dude.
You can just go to the Shake Shack near.
Whatever, it's a Mets game. You're not going to miss much anyway. So you go to Shake Shack, you get a black and white shake over there. It's a good time. And of course, the Apple. Love the Apple in center field. Yeah, big fan of Citi Field. I think it's a great ballpark. I just kind of wished, you're going back to like the mid 2000s when they were coming up with the creation of these ballparks in New York. I wish they put a fucking retractable roof on both of them because that's what we need.
I know. It's just, rains a lot in the summer and you have to do the rain outs. It's a pain in the ass.
Espo at number 4 for you.
Number 4, good old number 4. We got to go with Camden Yards here. It's been a while since I visited, but another just beautiful view. You have the backdrop of the city of Baltimore, but it's that It's that building in the background, and I'm sorry, I should know the name of it, but it's blanking me. The B&O Railroad, I want to say, but regardless, it's just a really cool park. The Orioles, though they haven't won too many games in recent years, it's just a really neat experience to attend a ball game there, and you got to get a Natty Boh beer as well on the side.
I will. Okay, so I'm gonna jump. No. I'll leave it be. But yes, love Camden Yards. Get to that in a little bit on my end. Number 3 for me, Fenway. Oh yeah, no biasness here from the Yankee fan. Love Fenway Park. Great. Only been there one time. Great experience, of course. Love the Monster. Love Utah Street. Is it Utah Street or is it Lansdowne? I forget.
Utah, Lansdowne, Rocky Way.
Right?
They got a lot of streets out there.
Shit. I confused them both. I don't know which one's on Lansdowne, which one's YouTube. I don't know what the chat's going to say. The chat's probably going to roast me right now.
Tomato.
One's Lansdowne, one is Utah. I know that for a fact. Boston was an awesome experience. Love the area. Love the bars around the place. It's just like that. Fenway Park it just encompasses what Boston is all about. And it's a really cool piece of architecture in the heart of Boston. It is awesome. Like, I love it. I love the traditional stadium look. Everything, obviously, all these teams are getting new ballparks, enhanced and whatnot. And yet Boston and Wrigley, stadiums like that, they still have that old school look, and you got to love it, man. So for me, Fenway was the oldest traditional park that I've ever seen. And so it sits at number 3 on my list. ESPO, for you at number 3.
Number 3, we're heading to the Steel City here, PNC Park. The view alone is just divine. I mean, the bridge in the background and the skyscrapers in the back and the river, it's perfect. Again, the Pirates, not a team that's won a whole lot of games in recent years, but it's just a beautiful stadium. And maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of other amenities as some of the newer stadiums, but like I said, the view alone is why it is deserving of being on this list. And one more thing, get yourself a Primanti Bros sandwich at the game.
Primanti Bros sandwich. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, PNC is definitely one of the parks that I would love to visit next. I never had the chance to see PNC Park, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Tom Waspel, my co-host on Savages in the Bronx, will say otherwise.
PNC hater.
It's very overrated, and he actually opened it up on Twitter as well. He's probably
there he is
right now. But yes, Tom Waspel, not a big fan of PNC Park. All right, my number 2 spot goes to Dodger Stadium. Yes, the home of the Los Angeles Dodgers on this beautiful Sunday. All right, done with Vin Scully, but Dodger Stadium. Yes, I had the chance of going there the summer of 2019 for a California trip. Not the craziest amount of features, but I love that view in the back. And I had similar seats to what you're seeing here on the overlay. This is not a picture from my hands, because it would be 10 times worse than this. But the background of the hills and the mountains back there looks so cool. And I got the chance to see the game at night. So seeing it with the sunset in the background, picturesque, beautiful, so gorgeous. Dell wallpaper worthy. Like, it was phenomenal to see that in person. Dodger Stadium is number 2 for me.
Dodger Stadium, definitely very beautiful in its simplicity, no doubt.
Number 2 for ESPO has already been mentioned tonight on the show. So here it is again for y'all.
Yes, sir. Fenway Park checking in at number 2. It's, for me, my number 1 pick is another old historic stadium, but Fenway number 2 is just in a class above the rest. It's like you're in a history museum. It's a shrine to baseball from 100 years prior, the 1918 Red Sox. You just really feel that nostalgia when you step into that stadium, and all the weird quirks and amenities and dimensions of the field. The green monster, the pesky pole. It's just, there's nothing like it. You have to go at least once in your lifetime if you haven't. Baseball fan or not, it's just.
Yep.
Oh, magic.
100%. And before we get into our number 1s, by the way, our next segment is our fan submitted questions, or FSQ. So I'll be looking into the chat, also on Twitter as well. But if you have any questions for Espo and I about baseball, hopefully just about baseball, whatever. I mean, we'll probably answer whatever, honestly. Go ahead, throw them in the chat. We'll answer whatever questions we get our way. Hopefully we'll get it done within the 5-10 minutes we have remaining on the show. And that's what we got going on. FSQs coming up shortly. But our number ones for our favorite MLB stadiums that we visited, number one for me is Oriole Park at Camden Yards, already mentioned by ESPO. And I believe you had him at your number 4 position. Camden Yards. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better yourself. I couldn't have said it better myself. That was the quote. And I'm a fucking idiot because I can't remember the quote. But couldn't have said it better myself, Espo. Yes, love the Utah Street out in right field. I heard now it's Utah Street. So I figured it out. But also cool features of this ballpark. This is also one of the first ballparks in baseball that began that renaissance of new stadiums popping up in MLB. Because shortly after that, you saw like the Minute Maid Parks and Comerica Park and the new stadium looks that you're seeing nowadays across the game. So it was the first ballpark to kind of break that traditional baseball stadium feel, like a Tiger Stadium, like a Fenway Park, like a city, like a Wrigley,
like a big dome bowl.
So
type
Camden Yards was
stadium,
the first up to date stadium in the new game of baseball, but so beautiful. And hey, Camden Yards also home of where Major League was filmed. So, that Cleveland stadium that you saw was actually Camden Yards, which is really cool. So yes, Camden Yards for me. Also, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the city of Baltimore, the area that's surrounding the stadium, the harbor, really nice around that area. Despite the reputation that Baltimore gets, really nice around the area. And I highly recommend going down to Camden Yards if you never had the chance. Espo, let's wrap this up with your number one.
Number one, this is a kingdom of baseball. Wrigley Field in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture.
Do I even need to say anything here, Rich? Because I feel like the picture is just
that might be a painting. Says it all. I'm not even sure if that's a painting or an actual picture.
It looks like a painting. It's just, I might cry. It's just so beautiful.
Jeez.
I mean, the ivy is just perfect. It's a little brown in April, and it gets nice and green in the summer. And the surrounding area, Wrigleyville, is something you definitely got to check out because much like Fenway, it's kind of got that very old school blue collar type neighborhood feel. So definitely a really great area to take in a game. But yeah, I got to go back to Wrigley sometime. It's been maybe 7-8 years, but can't wait to go back.
I said before, PNC sits at the top of my list of ballparks I want to visit, and right after that, it's Wrigley Field, just for the tradition. And the fucked up part is I was in Chicago a couple years ago, went for a wrestling event, different story, different podcast, different show altogether there. But I was there for a wrestling show, and I went to see the White Sox because the Cubs were in Philly playing the Phillies in the same weekend. So I missed out. I didn't get the chance to see the Cubs, but I saw the White Sox. Their ballpark was okay. They didn't make my top 5, obviously. But yes, Wrigley, I would love to go and see that for all the same reasons why I mentioned Fenway Park in my number 3 spot. So yes, that's our favorite MLB stadiums. And obviously I saw a few in the chat, which was great. And if you have any more you want to talk about, you could tweet us at LOF Podcast, talk about your favorite MLB stadiums that you visited and the ones that you haven't visited yet that you want to see. So really
topic of stadiums though, Rich.
Yeah.
This summer, Leading Off Podcast will be making its way to Yankee Stadium and Citi Field. That's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. It's going to happen. I mean, we're going to start local. We're going to go to TD Bank Ballpark over in Somerset. Well, Bridgewater, rather. And maybe do like a remote broadcast over there. Who knows? Before our big game that we got. So we'll see what happens. We're going to end our show with FSQs, our fan-submitted questions. Of course, we look into our Twitch chat here to see if anybody has any cool questions to bring to Espo and I's attention. Espo, I know you got called out on Twitter before by my co-host Tom Waspel on granting the Mets the number 4 position on your power rankings that we did a couple of weeks back. How are you feeling about the number 4 position now that you gave your New York Metropolitans?
I'm feeling as confident as ever in my Mets, man. We're still in first place. I see no reason why they shouldn't be in the top 5. And that's just it. But no, I mean, I guess the thing with the power rankings is, do you want to rank them based on how they're performing or based on who you think is the best team? Maybe not necessarily reflective of their record, but I mean, hey, they're still a first place team, so they're sticking there for me. The real upset in our power rankings is the Dodgers still at 1. I mean, it seems like since then they have just shit the bed, man. They have been. I think they've been the worst team in baseball since we ranked them number one.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, it's kind of wild to see what that West Division looks like. And the team
Right.
you would think that'd be ahead of the Dodgers is ahead of the Dodgers, but the team that's ahead of the Dodgers isn't in first place.
Right.
The San Francisco Giants, you were just talking about Oracle Park before, but Triples Alley is home to the first place San Francisco Giants. This isn't 2014 anymore, but yet this team is put it together and somehow put some awesome wins on the board. They've had some big wins over the last couple of weeks, and obviously small sample size, May 10th. You never know what's going to happen, but hey, the Giants are taking advantage and they're looking good so far. So yeah, the wild West is back at it again, and but it's the Dodgers here, Espo. We know the Dodgers are going to be back at it.
They're going to be back.
All right, we have a couple questions here.
We're going to seem like idiots.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to count them out now because, we'd have to retire the show because we would be dumbasses for counting out the Dodgers this early.
Right.
Seals demand, which baseball player in MLB history has changed the culture the most? Great question.
It's a tough one.
And I do have an answer because I think it's actually for me at least, I think it's a really easy answer. Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
Has changed the culture the most. The game was segregated. The game is no longer segregated. Look around baseball. Look at the stars of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously you have your Mike Trouts, which is fantastic. And you have great ambassadors in the game. But now, Ronald Acuna wants, it's not just African-American. Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto. These guys have changed the game. And I mean, Jackie Robinson was the guy who broke the color barrier. I mean, I think it's an easy way to answer the question. It also depends on how you want to answer the question as well.
Right.
But as far as like the dramatic change of the game, I'd say, Jackie Robinson for me without a doubt.
On a more dramatic and serious level, I would say Jackie for sure. But I guess kind of
for the sake of answering the question differently.
I was thinking Ken Griffey Jr. actually in terms of a culture changer. I feel like he just kind of brought baseball into that modern era, and he kind of just made the game cool. I mean, not that I always thought baseball was cool, but Ken Griffey Jr. brought swagger to the game for sure.
Oh yes, and we talked about it on our team swag that we put together a few weeks ago, and that was like the first guy the both of us thought of. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. was the definition of cool when it comes to baseball, wearing the cap backwards. I mean, this style right here that I'm wearing, I don't know if it was even popularized before Ken Griffey Jr., to be honest. Am I just calling out Ken Griffey Jr. for popularizing the backwards baseball cap? Because I probably just did.
Maybe, but hey, no one did it better than him. I know that.
But yeah, the brands, the video games, all that, the swag, the home run trots. It was Ken Griffey that made the game cool in the 90s. So yeah, I think those two are great answers for sure. And Seals the man was happy with that answer, so we did good. Expert FME. Here we go. Any thoughts about the Lindor tunnel incident, Raccoon or McNeil?
Got plenty of thoughts. First of all, it was a raccoon. It was a
raccoon.
It was a raccoon.
No one gets those in the South Shore of Staten Island, by the way.
Listen, I think it's all bullshit, and they're making a mountain out of a molehill here. I mean, listen, guys get heated, and they fight sometimes on sports teams. That's not out of the realm of normalcy for teams. And yes, Lindor probably could have went about it a little differently and admitted, yes, I got into a scuffle with McNeil, and I do think it rubbed some people the wrong way that he kind of made up that bullshit story because obviously it's bullshit. There's not raccoons and rats in the dugout tunnels. Let's be honest. I mean,
it could be rats. It's New York.
Maybe the only thing the only animal in the tunnel was a squirrel, and it was Jeff McNeil. But
polar bears aren't animals.
I think they just got to get over it. These beat writers, they're upset that they're not telling him the real story of what happened. But the Mets, they handled it internally. Lindor and McNeil, they hugged it out or whatever, and they're okay, and they've moved on. So the DeComos of the world should move on.
And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. People should just move on. I mean, listen, anybody could put their two cents together and realize, yeah, something happened in that dugout. There must have been something that involved McNeil, something that involved Lindor, something that involved,
They're
members of
passionate
that team.
guys, and they just want to win.
Guess what?
And that's
They
okay.
figured it out like men. They fucking won the game. Shit like that happens. And,
Right.
I played ball for years, and when you handle your shit on the diamond or in the dugout, it's best for just the culture of the team.
Right.
Nobody wants to leave the ballpark, with unresolved feelings and emotions. And it seemed like McNeil and Lindor figured it out right then and there. Lindor gave McNeil a pat on the back and said, like, hey, let's fucking go. That's what it's all about. So who gives a shit what happened?
But you know that New York media. You know that New York media, Rich. They love to.
Right. And listen, if the Mets win the World Series this year, there'll probably be some sort of documentary on the team in 2021, and the story will come out, and you'll find out. But who gives a shit? But yeah, you're right. It's the New York media. Everybody likes a story. Everybody likes a big headline. It is what it is. It happened. Mets won the game. Let's move the fuck on. It's not really a big deal. Barstool took advantage of it. They got like a raccoon shirt now that you can buy on Barstool, which I thought was
they're always making unique shirts.
Yeah, they're always doing the right thing. So
always hustling.
And then you sit back and you wonder, hey, is this just another shit Mets moment? I thought we were past these kind of things with the new regime. You know what? These things happen. Sometimes the regime can't control it. Players are going to get at each other for different things. Whether it's good or bad. So it is what it is.
If they keep winning, I don't care what they do. The squirrels, monkeys, giraffes, they could fight whoever they want.
Nobody, at least it appeared, didn't get significantly hurt in the scrum. So let's move on. And if somebody did get hurt, I think there's more of a story there. If somebody came out with a broken orbital bone or a fucking broken hand, then you got a story. Then you have something that you need to address.
No Geno Smith type situations with the Jets.
Yes. Right. None of that. Des Dutch, when the Mets win the series.
Optimistic. We got some optimistic Mets fans in this chat here.
I love it. I love it.
I love seeing it. Mets.
I love all you guys. That is great. And we'll have more FSQs down the line and later episodes. But that will do it for the 9th episode of Leading Off. We've completed now a full game of this show, ESPO. We go to extra innings starting next week with episode number 10. But anybody you want to thank before we send this off?
We're going to start a runner on second with our next show, Rich.
Oh,
yeah. I hate that
what? It's funny because we'll have a guest for next week. So technically,
we will. I'd like to thank the Academy. No, I wrote these down this time because I got quite a list of viewers here.
I'm about to drink.
I'd like to thank my Aunt Julie for tuning in. I know, big fan of the show. I'd like to thank my grandma for tuning in as well. And I'd like to thank our
wow. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, Espo. Your grandma and your aunt tuned in, and I was cursing like a sailor. I am so sorry, ladies. I apologize for my behavior. That is not me in the slightest, and this is why I need to check my behavior in the front door. Sorry. Continue, Espo.
You know what? I'm going to say the word fuck, and there's nothing they can do about it. It's done. I just did it. And also my homeboy, Denzel. Cheers, brother. But the Braves suck, and we're going to kick your ass.
Not the name drop, but was that Denzel Seals in the chat?
Yes, sir. My
man. What's up, Denzel? Yeah. Good to see you. Thanks for the support, bud. We'll see you here next week for episode number 10, as we'll see all of you guys here next week on Twitch, 7 p.m. Eastern time. As always, make sure to give us a follow at LOF Podcast like our boy Reggie Jackson did. And thank you to everybody. Thank all the mothers out there, and happy belated Mother's Day to you all. And hope you had a great weekend, but we'll see you here next Monday. Thank you very much, and take care.